There was a time in the past when the California condor faced near extinction. But now, after more than 40 years of relentless human efforts to conserve this sacred bird, conservationists have taken the first steps to bring them back from the brink.
This video is about the California condor and its journey to escape a grim fate. Appearing majestically in the sky, the California condor is the largest bird found in North America, with a wingspan of up to 10 feet, over 3 meters, and an average weight of about 20 pounds. Like many other vultures, the California condor's head is completely bare. This exposes a mottled skin with striking colors, like orange, red, and pink.
The lack of feathers around the head might be an evolutionary adaptation to keep the bird clean while eating carrion. However, some scientists have recently proposed other theories, suggesting the featherless head might be related to communication and body temperature regulation. The vastness of the California landscape means the region's temperature can vary significantly. These vultures must not only combat the intense heat under the scorching sun, but also stay warm when the weather turns cold. Their neck feathers can be raised to form an insulating layer for the bare skin that is frequently exposed to harsh weather. Intense heat is a common weather phenomenon in California. The condor has a common method to cool down, a technique also used by some animals like kangaroos, urinating on its legs. As the waste evaporates, it cools the blood in the legs, thereby lowering the rising body temperature. However, as you can imagine, the birds need to bathe regularly to prevent waste from accumulating on their legs. The English name for this bird is California condor. It comes from the word condor, a term used by the Inca people to refer to the divine bird of the Andes Mountains. Scientifically, its genus name is roughly translated from the Greek words gymnos and gyps, and is called gymnogyps, meaning naked vulture, alluding to its bald head. The California condor is a scavenger. They search for food from an altitude of several kilometers above the ground, sometimes foraging alone or in a loosely knit group. Condors possess excellent eyesight, allowing them to spot the carcasses of animals like livestock, bears, wolves, and marine mammals that have washed ashore. They can also track the behavior of other scavengers to help them locate food. With such good vision, condors not only take full advantage of this from the air, but can also use it effectively on the ground. Therefore, they do not need a keen sense of smell like some other scavengers. These birds prefer fresh carcasses. They use their hooked ivory-coloured beak to tear through the soft tissues of their victims. Possessing a powerful tool like the beak means the California condor doesn't need to evolve strong talons like other raptors. This inadvertently allows them to move quite comfortably on the ground, which they must often do when trying to take off. Although condors prefer fresh carcasses, the birds also need a lot of calcium, which soft tissue doesn't contain in large amounts. Therefore, they also actively seek out and eat bones or skulls to supplement their diet. A single carcass can attract many condors to one place, so a hierarchy is needed to avoid chaos. Unsurprisingly, young birds rank lower than adults, but they can sometimes change that through fights. Juvenile condors can be distinguished from adults by their black beaks and the black skin around their necks. Condors not only have to compete with each other for carcasses, but also with other scavengers like turkey vultures and ravens. Usually, the California condor is the more dominant species, but this is not the case when eagles appear. While the condor has a superior size advantage over the eagle possesses sharp talons that can severely injure the condors, and the condors often have no choice but to abandon the carcass when eagles show up. When a condor finds a large carcass, it quickly fills its crop. This requires about 3 pounds, 1.4 kilograms of meat, and these gluttonous birds can complete this task in just 20 minutes. Because they have to carry such a cumbersome weight of food inside their bodies, The bird sometimes has to wait several hours before it can take off again. Such a meal can provide a condor with enough energy to survive for up to 2 weeks without needing to find another meal quickly. But they usually choose to eat every 2 to 3 days. Although most animals living in arid regions around the globe are adapted to survive without drinking water, condors regularly replenish their bodies with water, especially after meals. They use various water sources, including rock pools, stagnant water, ponds, lakes, waterfalls, and even livestock water troughs. Without a water supply, a condor can only survive for a few days. In the late Pleistocene, about 40,000 years ago, condors could be found all over North America, with fossil records showing the bird once occupied a range stretching from the west all the way east to New York and Florida. However, after Europeans arrived, the large herds of animals that once roamed North America disappeared, and the condors also vanished from much of their former range because they could no longer find the large carcasses needed to sustain their massive bodies. Today, the bird is limited to a few western states of the US and Mexico, primarily found in the deserts of central and southern California. For condors to thrive in their habitat, certain requirements must be met. First, they need high perches and open spaces to take off and soar while searching for food. They also need suitable areas for nesting, which for such large birds are usually on cliffs or high rock ledges from 1,500 to 6,500 feet, 450 to 2,000 meters, though sometimes a tree is sufficient. Beyond these requirements, condors can tolerate a wide variety of habitats and climates, from open grasslands to deciduous forests. For a newly hatched condor, its first year of life is entirely dependent on its parents. Many will even stay in their nest until their second year. 100 days after hatching, a chick can reach the same weight as its parents. After 5 to 6 months in the nest, the chick's flight feathers are fully developed and it is ready to learn to fly. However, its heavy weight makes the task of flying far from easy, especially with no experience. Typically, the young birds will need to practice relentlessly for the next 4 to 5 months before they can make their first successful takeoff. During this period, the parents will continue to provide food, but the young birds themselves can have their own adventures with short flights, sometimes up to 1,000 feet or 300 meters away from the nest. Occasionally during this time, they may accompany their parents on short foraging trips. At 4 years old, a California condor becomes sexually mature and begins the process of finding a mate. But to reproduce, the male must first succeed in impressing a partner. Once a potential mate is found, the male begins to increase blood flow to his head, turning the bare skin bright red. He slowly approaches the female, puffs out the feathers on his neck, and spreads his wings. If the female bows her head, it signifies her acceptance, and if the pairing is successful, the couple may stay together for life. However, things are not always smooth sailing for the pairs. Despite their affection, they will sometimes fight over the right to incubate the egg and care for the young. After mating, the pair begins to build a minimalist nest on a sheltered rock ledge. Sometimes, condors might bring some human-made debris to the nest, including metal wires and glass. It is not yet certain why California condors do this. In some cases, the parent birds may build different nests, sometimes up to 2.5 miles, 4 kilometers apart. Each nest is used multiple times throughout the pair's lifetime. Using multiple nests may be related to combating disease, preventing unsanitary conditions, and avoiding predators. Sometimes condors may accidentally nest in the territory of larger eagles. This can lead to eagles attacking the condors, especially if they are aggressive neighbours like golden eagles. Smaller birds like swallows and flycatchers, as well as small mammals like wood rats, frequently visit the nests of other birds. The egg-laying season begins in January and lasts until April. During this time, the condor pair will lay only one bluish egg, up to 4.7 inches, 12 centimetres long. This egg weighs just over 10.5 ounces, 300 grams. However, given the egg's considerable size, the parent condors must be extremely vigilant against predators. Ravens, a species that considers eggs an ideal food source. If the condor loses its egg, it may lay a second one, but this egg is usually smaller than the first. From this point until hatching, the eggs receive the care of the parent birds until the parents are ready to lay another clutch. This means that over a 3-year period, a California condor pair can only raise a maximum of 2 chicks. Consequently, the population of this bird grows extremely slowly, and they are particularly vulnerable to threats. After a month of constant watch in the nest, the chick's appetite is no longer something a single parent can handle. At this point, both birds will have to leave the nest during the day to find food. They will frequently return to the nest to feed the chick partially digested food from what they have swallowed. Although the chick can now stay alone in the nest during the day, an adult still needs to stay during the cold nights to protect the chick from bad weather. The parent condors share nesting and foraging duties equally. They will take turns incubating the young and finding food for themselves. The chick will stay in the nest for a total of 6 months, at which point it will be fully fledged. Recently, a groundbreaking discovery was made about these birds. In 2001 and 2009, there were 2 cases of female California condors performing an act of reproduction known as parthenogenesis, meaning the offspring or egg is capable of developing without the role of a male. It is also called virgin birth. Sadly, both of these birds had relatively short lifespans, only 2 to 8 years. This is far too short compared to the average lifespan of over 40 years for this species, and neither produced offspring of their own. Although these cases occurred over a decade ago, they were only reported in late 2021. The birds were only discovered when their DNA was compared to the DNA of all 467 males in the breeding pool, and it was found that none of the males' DNA matched these chicks. One might assume this was because the females couldn't access males, but that's incorrect, as in both cases the females had access to males. The reason this is such a special event is that parthenogenesis is extremely rare in birds, with only a few rare cases recorded in turkeys and some captive zebra finches. The first flight is always a challenging task for large birds, and they need to prepare thoroughly. Typically, condors need to preen their feathers, spread their wings to dry them, and regulate their body temperature. Their large size also means they cannot sustain powered flight for long periods and must rely on rising columns of hot air, thermals, to travel the distances necessary for a scavenger. This means that most of the California condor's foraging time is limited to the middle of the day, when temperatures are at their highest. And the birds only have about 7 or 8 hours to forage each day. During the period they can fly well, this time can be reduced during the winter months, and they need up to 30% of their flight time just to travel between foraging spots. Condors need to return to their roosts by mid-afternoon and spend the rest of the day preening or sunbathing. Sometimes the foraging time is reduced even further because condors cannot fly in severe weather. The availability of specific food sources allows condors to survive in one place throughout the year without needing to migrate like many other birds. Immature birds often spend their first 2 years living within their parents' territory before striking out to find their own family. Many studies have concluded that besides age, only one other factor affects the home range size of the California condor. During the summer months, the condor's home range increases as days get longer and solar radiation increases. Birds with specific home ranges are often known to be aggressive towards members of their own species. But that is not true for condors. Condors only tend to be antagonistic during the breeding season, and during this time they will chase away unfamiliar condors from their nesting site with an upright posture and puffed out chest muscles. Sometimes they will butt the strange bird with their beak and knock it off the perch. To show submission to a more aggressive bird, the weaker condor will flap its wings loosely, similar to the behavior of a chick. However, for most of the rest of the year, the California condor is a rather social bird. They frequently roost together on high tree branches and cliffs. Although scuffles are common among younger birds, they're usually less serious than what is seen in adults. Generally, it will be limited to pecking and head wrestling. Some people might be frightened to face a large condor, but in reality, condors are not aggressive towards humans and are generally more curious. This has inadvertently led them into some unnecessary conflicts with humans when they fly low to search for dead livestock and end up being shot. Because they lack a syrinx, voice box, condors are limited in the number of sounds they can make. Adults hiss and make snorting sounds as a way to defend their nest and chicks. The chicks of this species can make hissing and growling sounds. The frequency of the sounds will gradually increase as the chick grows. Due to their limitations in vocal communication, it is very likely that condors have opted to communicate visually. They use their bald heads as a means of communication when they feel anxious, excited, or are seeking a mate by turning bright red. Young California condors are often very playful. They will peck or jump on inedible objects for entertainment. This can be annoying for the parent birds, and to restrain these rebellious chicks, a parent will place a foot on the chick's neck and pin it to the ground. However, they will also sometimes play a little with their young, with their feathered wings, or sometimes with twigs or blades of grass. Some of their favourite games include tug-of-war or tossing objects for the chick to fetch. It's no surprise that California condors have no natural enemies, except for humans. But when they are young, they can be attacked by ravens and eagles, or in the past by grizzly bears. They are also affected by several parasites, like feather lice, fleas and ticks. And like most scavenging and carnivorous birds, the California condor is also severely affected by the West Nile virus, which causes loss of coordination, tremors, weakness and blindness. But captive birds have been vaccinated and are resistant to the disease before being released into the wild. And they have fewer problems related to these diseases when introduced into new populations. But with a lack of natural predators, why is the California condor population still critically endangered? The main reason for their decline is lead poisoning. This is a major threat to birds of prey and other scavengers worldwide, as they ingest prey that has been killed with lead-based ammunition. On top of that, condors also face threats from pesticides. This is the cause of their already fragile eggshells becoming even thinner. As a rare bird, California condor eggs are also sought after by collectors. Laying only 2 eggs over 3 years and the slow development rate of the chicks make the California condor very vulnerable to diseases and mass die-offs. Plastic waste and other man-made materials also affect them when adult condors accidentally bring these materials back to the nest. Power lines are also a very serious threat to condors. Scientists and conservationists have made every effort to protect this bird since 1967, when it was added to the US endangered species list. But by 1980, it was realised that these efforts were not enough to save the species. Captive breeding programs were implemented to try to protect the birds and increase their numbers. Condor eggs were incubated in zoos across the country, but the wild population continued to decline. and at one point there were only 10 individuals left in the wild. At this point, the decision was made to bring all remaining individuals into captivity for their own good, and in 1987, the last wild bird was captured. When the last bird was caught, there were only 27 California condors on the entire planet. Fortunately, captive breeding efforts were incredibly successful. Today, nearly 500 condors are flying free again, and 270 of them have returned to the wild after the reintroduction process began in 1992. The state of California has also changed some hunting laws to further protect this giant bird. What are your impressions of this magnificent condor? Leave your opinions in the comments section.